and saying, you know, why is it that July 1st is open? Well, our lease is up on our last place on June 1st, and we want a month to slowly move into our place, right, or whatever they say, or no, our lease is up on, we want to close on, I had somebody say, we want to close on June 1st because our lease is up on July 1st. We want plenty of time to move our stuff from our apartment and not rush. Well, other people say, gosh, I can't afford it, so I want to be able to close on this date and move out of my house on this date. So those are the kinds of things that you've got to keep in mind. So I'll stop right there. Yes?
Are you finishing?
I'm pretty finished. I
Okay.
just want to do questions and answers and make sure I...
On the buyer, on the buyer's agreement through,
Yes,
the car.
car, yes.
Every single time I have the problem is with, and I explained to them, but the last time I looked at it, it's said that they're gonna be paying such and such commission. And I always tell them, the seller pays for the commission.
No. What it's saying, you've got to read it very carefully, is if they run off and use another realtor, they owe you a commission. That's what it's saying.
It also says something to the effect of it's fine if another party, like the sellers, pay their commission
Yeah.
as well. It has verbiage for just them getting paid through some way, but it's fine if another party, like the sellers, pay their.
Okay,
Their
so
commission.
it's
Yeah.
been a while, so.
So
I would,
what-
I would
gave
pull
up
it
on
up
it.
and read it, because there's the part
Okay.
where you can say per the MLS. Like
Yes.
if you're gonna do that, you could do the
Okay.
per the MLS. So then that, I know back in the days, maybe 10, 15 years ago, it was like you are committed to paying us a certain percentage.
Yeah,
That's not
when
the
the
case.
last time I looked at it.
No, it's not the case. There's an option now where you can just kind of tell them, it's the commitment. It's just like, I just want you to know that I'm 120% dedicated to finding your time, because I don't get paid until we close escrow on a house.
Yeah.
So if I'm committing my time, can I count on you to also know that if you see any houses that you like, you call me first, not talk to the agent or on Zillow or the agent that pops up on Zillow, right? And if they can't commit to you, then you need to wonder, okay, well, how serious are you buying this house?
And
Thank you.
that's what happens on a buyer broker agreement if you decide to use them. I'm not a fan of them, but I would encourage others to use them. Is that your main line that you want to say to them when they're using it is, I just want you to know, signing this form basically commits me, that's what you want to say, commits me to committing 100% of my time towards finding you the house of your dreams.
Yeah.
That's all I say. I don't talk about what it commits them to at all. And I used to get them
I
signed,
do.
but I just lost interest in it. It was like always a battle, and I know it's my problem. If it's a battle, it's my presentation techniques that are wrong, not them. And I just gave up on it. But I can't remember a time after 1996 that I had an ability to do a buyer consultation that I lost a buyer. If I didn't do a buyer consultation, I stood the chance of losing a buyer. So, okay. So it's always important to have that buyer consultation, and what's important to them is they realize that you don't want to just jump in a car. People say, well, have you ever shown a house and not? Yes. If I get a buyer lead and they're like, hey, I saw your listing, I don't mind going over and showing it to them. And then after showing it to them, I said, why don't we set up a time and really go over, this doesn't seem like the house you're madly in love with. Can we sit down and I have this little process I go through. It's absolutely free, no obligation to you, and it'll help clarify the process from start to finish. So keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, when you meet buyers and they say, oh, we're not ready, I go, well, what do you mean? How long do you think before you'll buy? We're thinking buying next year. I go, oh my gosh, we caught each other just in time. That's what I say every time. When a seller says, we're not going to be ready to sell for 2 years, I say, oh my gosh, we caught each other just in time. They go, what? And they go, well, do you know how many times I've worked with sellers that are getting ready to sell now? And they say, gosh, I wish I knew that 2 years ago. Well, that happens all the time. And what's really cool is that the process I take you through starting now 2 years is completely free, no obligation to you. All I do is I set an appointment, come over, visit with you, talk to you about how you're over the next 2 years will get your house ready for sale. Things that you can enjoy along the way that'll still get you more money for your home 2 years from now. Now, did it sound like that was practiced or scripted? No, it sounded natural. It sounded like I've said it a million times before. You have to get used to that. There's nobody you should not be meeting now, even if they're ready 2 years from now, unless you're thinking you're going to be out of real estate 2 years from now. Then send them to me. Okay? Because when people say 2 years, they're thinking they're like pushing you off. You go, perfect. So glad we met now. Well, what are they thinking? You're a freaking idiot. I said 2 years. Well, you're going to explain to them why 2 years. Buyers, I haven't said it 2 years, but when they've said 1 year, I go, we need to get together now. Because there's so much that has to get prepared in your financial world and in your family life to know what's going to happen when it's time to buy a year from now. Okay? I tell them about my son all the time, Anthony. He started working with Anna 2 years before he bought a house. 2 years. She set him up. You're going to need to do this, you're going to need to do that, you're going to have this show up on your application. Like, he followed everything she said. And ask Gina, he's not one to follow instructions very well. Right? And by the way, he just got refinanced, saved $290, and he did that because I told him what happened to you.
Brett's refinancing right now too.
Yeah.
I think he's gonna get rid of his PMI.
Oh,
Already.
well, that didn't happen for Anthony. His neighborhood didn't go up that fast, but
Yeah, if your house gets shot at,
your
goes
value
up.
goes right up.
Your value just skyrockets.
Yeah, see,
It
folks,
just shot up.
she didn't sell a house to a stranger that got shot on a drive-by in his
Oh
house.
my
She
God.
sold a house to her son, and,
It's no lie.
a drive-by
No
bullet
lie.
went through the house. So,
No lie.
yeah.
He's fine.
Yeah.
He's fine.
He's fine.
He's
yes.
fine.
Clear that up.
Yeah. It's no joke. It was horrible. Anyway, I can laugh about it now. It was not a laugh.
Cindy, we had an appointment at
did
the
they buy-
office.
did he buy
Rick,
it
my
also?
son's house got shot. I'm not coming to our appointment at the office. I'm like, okay, go ahead. It's all right.
I had to get excused.
Yeah. Okay, but what I really want you to thinking about is, can you say what I said? Can you create something for yourself? The packet, that's just stuff. You can start ordering that stuff, go to Chamber, pick stuff up, go online, print stuff up, whatever. But you really have to make this a science.
Can I have Nikki share her? Actually, I listened to her today. We called a lead that came in, and the person was looking for a rental, but like she's just so naturally at asking the questions, and you can have that can happen at open houses too. Like when you ask, like, "Oh, what's your current situation? I'm renting," and then what was your line?
Yeah, so we're actually getting a lot of renters on Zillow, and so I usually say, so I tell them I can't help them because I don't do rentals, but I say, if you can afford rent in the Bay Area, what's preventing you from buying? And usually it's really silent. I don't say a word, and it's usually a while. I'm like, oh, come on. And sometimes they'll actually say, I don't know, I just like never thought about it. And I say, would you like me to hook you up with Anna, our lender? And they're like, sure. And so Anna's actually got 2 people on a plan right now, like she did for your son. So hopefully we can push those to actually buy in the future.
That's great.
And then sometimes, I'll get one like, no, thank you, and they'll just hang up. But I actually get a.
And where are these people coming from that you saw?
Zillow.
Zillow, nice.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then Anna, who you had, in case she's come here and she's done. If you were here last week, 2 weeks. Was it last week or 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
2 weeks ago, she had an amazing presentation about credits and appraisal, and she also has a lot of programs too that I get a report on. But I mean, really, there's a report where she can generate, and it tells you of maybe 300,000 people living in the city. 200 of them are renter, and of those 200 renters, 100 of them could actually qualify to be a home buyer, but they just don't know. They get so intimidated that they just keep on doing their own thing. So just being able to know your market, know your industry, and being educated and opening doors for others, you have to create those doors. But you have to continue to educate yourself to open doors for others who don't know about it. And that's what our job is, to help them and guide them into home ownership in ways that they never thought they would have.
Awesome. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is understanding your contract. A couple things that came up last year. No, I'm sorry. 3 years ago. Final walkthrough. How many of you take serious attention to the final walkthrough provision in the contract? Okay. So
Everybody should be raising their
Yes.
hands.
Well, I mean.
I'll do my first one on
always-
Thursday. So.
I always do it, I mean.
yeah, so it's paying attention to the provision and when you do it. And I'll tell you what I mean by that.
5.
Contractually, it says within 5 days of close of escrow.
Right.
Unless you change that default yourself, most people don't. All right? So we even had an incident where Marissa sold a house in Alameda, and the agent got nasty. She goes, I was going to go do the walkthrough. And she goes, well, that's not within 5 days. I don't think I've ever heard anybody explode like that over it's not. Well, problem was they were trying to get some stuff out of the house before the final walkthrough was done. When we figured it out, why they wanted to do that. There is an issue with doing the walkthrough, even on a vacant home that you've seen before. We've seen issues, we just went to court 6 years ago over this, where our buyer walked in the morning of close before it recorded. Did I tell you guys this story already? And the family room floor was buckled.
Oh, yeah.
So that happened, the little water incident that happened under the family room floor happened that morning. Because they had just been there, not the buyer, but the seller was just there the day before, you know, taking out his last stuff. It'd been vacant for a while, but he'd left like a broom and some stuff. And he didn't see it. So we knew it happened. We asked the seller, look, it happened before it closed. Unfortunately, my realtor that was on my team dropped her off and gave her the key and never went in. So the client saw it herself. Luckily, she took a picture. The picture was timed and stamped, of course, by iPhone. You know, 7-8 months later, my client won $10,000 in a small claims court. Our client did. But all the seller had to do was claim it on his insurance, because at the time the home was still his, the insurance was still in effect, and he didn't want to. He just became bullheaded. But the main point of the story is do your walkthrough before close of escrow, not the day of. That way anything that wasn't their responsibility gets covered. Do your verification of property. Not only is EXP and most companies requiring that form before they'll issue your commission check unless there's extenuating circumstances like a rent back, but man, and there's no sense doing a walkthrough if there's a rent back, because you're not going to see under the furniture, right? You can't see the stuff they may be hiding with their bed or their couches. So,
How do you handle that then?
well, you have a clause in the contract, like if we're giving, as a buyer, if we're giving a free rent back to the seller, we put a security deposit. You know, we're not charging the seller anything, but we
Yeah.
want $2,500 held, or $3,000 or $5,000, right?
Yeah,
So you do that. That's your walkthrough.
okay.
So, you know, and you
I
can
mean,
even
but-
put in the contract,
Even
write in the contract yourself, final buyer walkthrough to be done within 5 days of seller vacating the property completely, or something like that. Be creative, be exact, please. Okay, this is not something to mess around with. It was 2 times in 40 years to go to court over a walkthrough is more than enough, believe me.
But isn't the
One time it was
walkthrough-
my seller, they just had a mat that was sitting right there on the kitchen floor linoleum in front of the sink. And the last day, they picked up the mat, the house was empty, they had left the mat. They just picked it up, they go, we don't have this mat, they threw it away. Yellow spot, right there, in the linoleum. All white linoleum except under that mat. Something under the mat stained the bottom of the linoleum. They had to replace the entire linoleum for the whole kitchen, which was like $1,100. Don't mess with it. Yeah. All right, Sonia.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, isn't the final walkthrough, I mean, it's just basically the condition of the house the same as it was at the beginning, correct?
Yes, but it's not, so first, very good, it's not a contingency of the contract, remember that. Now, there's not a right for the buyer to back out, but if something is discovered that wasn't known,
Material.
yes, anything, well, for instance, we did our walkthrough at a normal time, and the seller had taken out just the recliner was missing, and there was a big gaping hole in the rug under the recliner. And the seller didn't try to hide it. We got there, like, and they go, yeah, we didn't know about that. Like, the seller was standing right there. At least everybody's aware, now we can handle it. The credit, something, right? And we didn't
Is there
admit
a
to
way
them
of
that,
forcing the seller to handle it?
well, you,
Place the linoleum or?
oh, yeah, I mean, it's legal. It's a non-disclosure item, meaning you didn't disclose it, even if the seller didn't know it. So.
But see, I mean, how can they determine that's your fault, though? Because that's a situation you wouldn't have known, because it was not visible. You're only doing the visible,
Absolutely. No, it's not, you don't get a claim for lack of disclosure. The buyer has a right to a new disclosure, something they didn't know. So it's not about whose fault. Bottom line, the seller still owns the home, and it's something discovered before they transferred it. It's the same thing. If a buyer discovers something 3 years from now, and it was like hidden behind a wall and the seller didn't know, right? Well, there's nothing that the buyer can do against the seller unless they can prove the seller knew it and hid it from them, right? So yeah, I mean, I got some real crazy stories after owning 9 offices and going to court for people all the time, but you just don't want to do that. You want to just be very careful with the wording of your contract, okay? So here's what I mean by that. if any of you are gonna allow a free rent back after close, or a paid for rent back, let me know, I'll help you with the wording. I don't care if you're on the team or not, just call me and say, what would the wording be?
My last one was a rent back. I mean, it's not that hard, but like you say, you know, with those contracts, it's
Mhm.
all in the
Yeah.
good wording.
Yes.
So,
And remember, what are the, Denise, there's two different forms for seller rent back. One's for under 30 days and one's
one's
for over 30 days.
yeah.
30
over-
days or more.
So
Okay.
there's the SIP, the seller
In possession
In
in
after close.
possession after close, and the other one is a true rent back when it's 30 days or more.
RLAS, yeah,
Yeah.
residential lease
Lease
after
after
sale.
sale.
Okay? All right, I'm telling you guys, the market's gonna get busier and busier based on your own activity. And I wanna keep you busy, paid attention to the activity, not to the minutia in the background. So the better you get at the contracts and things like that. My transaction coordinator sent me an email the other day, and I didn't even copy Denise and Gina on the reply to her because I was so angry with myself that I actually missed two very important items myself in the counteroffer. And I know it was because I was doing the counteroffer at 11 p.m. I was exhausted. I'd gotten up at 3 a.m. that day, and I missed a couple small things. Not anything that was going to kill anything, but like for instance, if they don't say who's paying for the home warranty, then you darn well better see that box below checked that says buyer waives the home warranty. If none of them are checked, you got to handle that in an addendum or a counteroffer. I didn't. Right? There was a couple things that I missed that were tiny small, but still it gets me upset at myself because I'm supposed to be a contract expert. That's my strength, right? So it's important, you guys, that we don't play games with this because people's lives are at stake, and already attorneys think that people buying real estate from real estate agents are idiots because they go, well, you're making the real estate agent an attorney because they're contract representatives. We're like, no, we're not. We're filling in blanks on a previously written contract that was written by attorneys. So, okay? So be careful. All right, that's all I got for you today. Thanks for coming. You can all leave soon. No, I'm kidding.
No, gotta go home.
But you gotta get the heck out of here. All right, can I open this? It's getting a little stuffy.
How's Benny liking daycare?
He still cries and screams the whole way I'm walking him there.
Oh, man.
But then 10 minutes after I leave, she sends me a picture of him crying.
Sherry, did you get enough
Shit.
proof for,
He just does it to
for the
me.
wife?